Welcome to this Python sales data analysis portfolio project. We'll walk through step by step this Kaggle dataset, going through data cleaning, some initial EDA, and then some visualizations. The dataset I chose was this supermarket sales data. I want you to read and understand the context. This dataset is a historical record of sales data in 3 different supermarkets. Make sure you expand on this, and I will include this Jupyter notebook in the description for you to work through. But let's begin. This is what I would do in my role as a data analyst. I'd be given some data like this, and I'd begin. Immediately, I'm going to import Pandas as PD under the naming convention. This is for adding the data from a CSV into a Python data frame, and that'll allow me to work with it. This is always the first step. Then I've added NumPy, which actually in this project I didn't really end up using. Then I have 2 key, crucial visualization libraries, Matplotlib, and building on that, Seaborn as SNS for statistical plotting. Next, I read in the data frame with the Pandas import, and I stored the CSV under df for data frame. Now we finally got this into Python. Then I did df.head. This will show me the first 5 rows. In my exploration, it seemed as if there were some unique IDs, and in fact I can check that now. Are they unique? There are 1,000 unique values. So this is confirmed for me that each customer is a unique customer. Then we have the branch. There are 3 here, A, B, and C. These are the 3 supermarket stores we're comparing. The city, type of customer, quantity, unit price, payment type, and so forth. Now, there are 1,000 rows. I did df.shape to confirm this and see that there are 17 different columns. It's not a huge data set in terms of rows, but there are plenty of columns and so variables to explore. Are there any duplicate or null values? To determine this, I did df.info. And I can see for each of these 17 columns have 1,000 non-null, meaning there are no null values. There are some different data types to work with here, like floats and so forth. This got me thinking, it's actually a very clean data set. Are there any duplicated values? Again, using Pandas, which is primarily what I use for my analysis, we'll do df.duplicated.sum. And there's none. Fantastic. This is a really good data set to work with. Then I did df.describe. Now on each step of this, if I was to put this in my portfolio, say upload it to GitHub, I'd add some comments with a hashtag. I'd write why I was doing this and what I found. With df.describe, I can see that the average, or the mean, price of a product is 56. I found the rating column very interesting. Now, if you don't want to keep going up and reading all the column names here, what you can do is type df.columns and see them all listed here. The ratings column is a scale from 1 to 10. I wanted to know which branch, A, B, or C, had the highest. And to do this, I again used Pandas with a df.groupby. The branch, first in curly brackets, then in square brackets, the rating, and I looked at the mean. The average. I can see that branch B has the lowest rating on average. That's very important to know. I can see that the highest rating on average is, well, let's take a look, branch C. Only marginally. Branch A is also performing very well. B, less so. We might want to explore why this is. Really build a narrative with your analysis. Look into things deeper. Analyze, understand. That will be your role. Then, and I have added some comments here, I wanted to impress my stakeholders and show that I could do more than simple group bys, mins and max and so forth, and really get into some coefficients, some correlation. And here I did this via df ratings, correlations by quantity. In effect, what I'm doing here is looking at the correlation between rating and quantity. If we hit run, you'll see it's minus, and it's only very slightly negative. So it's a very weak negative linear correlation. And what this means is, as the rating increases, the quantity tends to decrease, and vice versa. What does that mean for your business? Now that's really where your project will shine. Add more comments than I have done here, and add more analysis. This is just a starting point, a springboard for you to shine. Then I wanted to have an example of some key KPIs. So what I did here is some calculations. I looked at the average transaction value and the average profit per sale. You can see here I printed for convenience, and I can see the average transaction value was about £60, whereas the average profit was about £3. Again, you could break this down by store A, B and C. In fact, I'd recommend you do. It would be interesting to know, whilst B has the lowest rating, do they then have a lower sales amount or otherwise? In fact, why not work that out now? Let's do this here with a group by, a very quick way to calculate. And placing it in. Then we'll look at the average, or the mean. We can infer they have a good profit here, but why might this be? That'll be a good point of comparison. I printed out all the unique ratings to confirm this, and yes, it does range from 4 to 10, but there's a lot of decimal values. Initially, I did a bar plot, which didn't look great because it presented all of these out on the x-axis, and it was very cluttered. I had a think and I thought, how best would I present this? Well, perhaps a histogram, a hist plot, this, would chuck these values into bins and so group them together. You can see I added a note explaining why I used a hist plot. I did about 20 bins, KDE being this line here, true, and the colour sky blue, just as a personal preference. I then label my axis, which is always good practice, as it allows you to understand easily, very quickly, what is going on. This is the distribution of ratings. We can see it's the frequency here. Now, I looked at a few less categories so that I could explore it as a bar plot. What I did here was a count plot, chucking in the data frame as DF, and on the x-axis, with this being the Y, on the x-axis I put payment, I labelled it, and then plotted. Brilliant. You're all doing fantastic, because we can see here, again very easily, that credit card has the lowest distribution of payment, and e-wallet and cash payment methods are one of the higher. Again, look at this by store. Let's see if we can add a hue in here. Now, nearing the end here, we're just over halfway. Product line analysis. I did change the figure size because if I hadn't, you'll see when I run it, it was a bit tight for me. And I wanted to use matplotlib to expand that. Again, it's a simple bar plot, and we label the X, Y, title, and then I rotated these labels here. Then we went on to visualize the total sales by customer type. You can see here that for members, females spend more, and also for normal customers. Now let's scroll down. This is where we get a bit more complex, and even more so in these later visualizations. But like I said, you're nearing the end and we are nearly done. To get this visualization, we looked at day of the week using the date in the data frame. We then visualized the total sales by day of the week. This one was a bit more complex to set up, and I'd recommend you take a look through each line of this code here and see what I did. Now plt.show is actually not required in a Jupyter Notebook environment, and you can see here CI is actually depreciated. We don't use that anymore, so I'll remove that too. And that's a demonstration of why you may want to play around. Looking at this, we can see there are a lot of sales on Saturday, and that's not surprising. Far less on Monday. I imagine people would be working or at school. Doing another group by, we segmented based on total spending. This is another bit more complex visualization to just demonstrate the breadth of your skill. What we did here, and then visualized it, is look at the spending category, and we cut it up by the total into bins of 0, 100, 500 and 1000. These correlating to low, medium, high and very high total spending. Then we plotted it. We made it a count plot with a hue of customer type, which was interesting to see previously with gender. And then we then labeled it. We can see that members, the amount they spend per spending category actually evolves. And finally, we have brought ourselves to this visualization, the final visualization. We're looking at the hourly sales patterns. It's another example of what you may want to do. Using the datetime object, we looked at hour rather than week as we had earlier, and we visualized hourly sale patterns. We did this by setting a figure size, again, as we always have, and here we used a line plot, looking at the X being hour and Y being total. Now, the one thing I didn't do here, and I wanted to leave that as a task to you, is to look at the geographical location. It's not something we really did. It's very important, and I'd recommend you do that. But have a play. Now all the best, and good luck.